Hey, so today on Tuesday Tip, we wanted to talk about planting trees. So this time of the year and certain times of the year, people like to get out and they're starting to plant different kinds of trees and different things in their yard. And we wanted to talk about that today. A couple weeks ago was Arbor Day, and so in the Arbor Day event, we were able to plant a tree for the Genesis Joy House that was donated by the Master Gardeners Club here in Warner Robins. And we were able to plant a tree there. And in those photos, you probably see we got a lot of questions in reference to that, and in reference to how we plant a tree. So I kind of wanted to go over that a little bit today on Tuesday Tip. So when you plant a tree, first of all, you need to think about the tree that you're planting. What kind of tree are you planting? Are you planting a pine tree? You planting a magnolia tree? You're planting, a red bud or whatever the case may be, or a maple, whatever that category is. And then you need to look at the spacing, like particularly the spacing in which you're planting it. So if you're planting it, you need to make sure there's a few things to be aware of. When you plant that tree, it may only be the size of your finger, or it may only be the size of a 10-gallon pot or 15-gallon pot, but that tree is going to grow up, and when that tree grows up in 20 years, what is it going to look like? So you need to prepare for that spacing. So an example, if you want to plant an oak tree, you don't plant an oak tree in a 6-foot space where you only have 6 foot between structures. Why? Well, because that tree is going to get much bigger than that. There's names that you may look out there and say, hey, that particular plant says it is a little gem magnolia. So you look at it and you go, oh, it's little. Well, that really is kind of deceiving, because if you look at the little gem magnolia and you look at the label on the magnolia, it talks about the sizing and how particular width that tree will get. It's 20 foot wide or 30 foot wide and 20 foot tall. So that's a big difference in that. The other thing to keep in mind is keep in mind your other structures. So for an example, if you have a house or you have a power line that goes over top or those kind of things, you really don't want to plant in those areas if you've got a tree that's going to get 20 foot tall. We see it a lot of times. If you go up and down the highway, you'll see where the power company has come in and whacked the top of the tree out. Well, that's because the tree was planted under a power line. Their job is to keep that power line clear, so therefore you get a whacked off tree. Obviously it doesn't do the tree very good from a health standpoint, but keep that in mind. So check out your area, your space. Talk about the type of tree that you're going to plant. The other thing that you also need to pay attention to is planting the tree. So we like to dig our hole 2 times bigger than the size of the root ball. And what we do with that is we like to dig that dirt out. If you have a clay soil and that sort of thing, you may want to do a little bit of additional amendments to the soil, but in most cases we will just dig the hole 2 times bigger than the size. We backfill the plant material with the dirt, most of the time like an organic or a topsoil or something like that if we're planting in a surface that is going to hold water. The other thing to keep in mind with clay, so if you have a clay hole and you drilled a hole or dug a hole in clay and it was really, really hard and it took you forever to dig the hole, then make sure that you scuff up the inside of the hole. Because what you don't want the tree to do is as the tree grows and it grows out and it hits the wall, it will actually start to turn and grow around the inside of that circle. So it doesn't penetrate through the clay walls of the hole. So keep that in mind. And then also when you go to plant the tree, we see a lot of times people plant, and here's the top of the root ball, and they pile this dirt on top, or they pile this mulch on top of the plant. But the plant wants to breathe out of the top. So what you want to do is you want to have that top layer of the plant material, and then you want to fill the dirt up around it, and so that it's level. Maybe make a tree ring around it, and what that basically is a ring of dirt around it so that it'll hold water up next to the roots. You also, as you put the dirt into the hole, you also want to put some water into the hole. What that does is it gets all the oxygen out of the root area. If the oxygen stays in a root area, then what it will do is it will cause those roots to die, and then that results in the tree could die as well. So again, when you're planting the tree, you want to make it a little bit larger, about 2 times the size of what you want the hole that you have. So you want it to be just a little bit lower than your plant, the bottom of the plant, the depth of the plant. When you plant the plant, you want to make sure the inner walls are scuffed up of the hole. You want to, when you set the plant in there, you want to fill the hole with some dirt and then add some water, and as you work your way back up, packing the dirt down in there so that it'll hold the tree. Once you get all that done, then you'll put a ring around the outside of the tree, fill the tree ring full of water to the most it'll hold, and then let that water soak down into the tree ring. Now, when you talking about mulches and pine straw, lightly put your mulch and pine straw over the top of the ring and up to the bark of the tree. Don't put 4 foot of mulch around it, because when you do that, that mulch will sit on the side of the bark of the tree. It causes the bark of the tree to get very soft and very weak, which then allows insects and disease to get inside of the bark of the tree and can cause the tree to die. Once you have all that, the tree's pretty much planted, right? But there's one more step to the process. One thing that we always need to keep in mind is we need to have that tree properly staked. And what that means is we need that tree to have some leaders coming off of it that are driven into the ground, usually with a wooden stake. We recommend wood because wood over time will rot and you can just take it out. If you drive a steel rod in the ground, well, getting a steel rod out of the ground is going to be a very, very difficult challenge. We see people that'll do it with T-post, fence T-post, and drive them in the ground, and then we can't get them out of the ground because they have literally rusted into the ground and they won't come out. So then you want to tie those strings to the top of this trunk of the tree right at the first set of branches so that it'll hold the tree in place when there's wind. Now, you don't have to pull them down like super, super tight. You want it to have a little bit of give and flow so that it'll move with the wind, but you don't want it so tight that you don't want it so loose that it just flops around in the wind. You want it to have a little bit in the middle. At the top, if you're using a string or a rope, then what you want to do is get you a short piece of a water hose, cut that piece of a water hose off, and then loop it through the tree so that it'll hold. That will allow the tree not to become girdled, and what that basically means is if you have that string run around that tree, and as that tree grows, it's going to try to grow out, and as it grows out, that string actually will grow into the tree. There are certain types of maples and oaks that will actually cause them to die and get weakened, and so then you're going to have issues with those trees. So here's just a couple of simple tips to help you with your landscape, to help you planting trees. If you need some advice on what particular type of tree that you need, or you have some questions on any other issues with your trees, please give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you out, and we hope you enjoy and have a great spring.